From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
After 11 terms in Congress, Jim Langevin has announced he won't be seeking re-election. The news took many by surprise and instantly scrambled the 2022 elections in Rhode Island. What's behind his decision to leave public service for the first time in more than 35 years, and what it means for the 2nd Congressional District. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Steph Machado is in for Ted Nesi this week, and joining us on set for, well, Congressman, I guess this is your exit interview of sorts, as Congressman Jim Langevin. It's good to have you in studio. Apologies for the social distancing that we have to do here.
That's all right. Great to be with you. Just remember, I still do have almost another year in office before we leave, so I'm sure we'll be talking again in the future too, hopefully.
Good point. Good point. We'll probably have you back in the next year. So look, the last time you were on set with us was back in April, and I asked you, are you running for re-election in 2022? You said you were. What changed between April and now? Yeah,
at that time, I was still planning to run for re-election, although I had been contemplating my future and what's next, and decided over time that I've accomplished many things on behalf of the people of the state of Rhode Island. I'm proud of the public service I've been able to give to the people of Rhode Island. That's really what I had hoped to do throughout my entire career, is give good public service to the people of Rhode Island, and then leave when I felt when the time was right. So there's a whole, I think, a combination of things. Getting on an airplane and traveling to D.C. every week is always a challenge. That's become less and less appealing over time, and looking for a better work-life balance that keeps me closer to home is what I decided is important for my future right now. And again, it's been the honor and the privilege of my lifetime to be able to represent the people of Rhode Island's 2nd Congressional District in the United States Congress. Beyond my wildest dreams, that I have stayed here as long as I've been able to represent the people who have re-elected me time and time again. I'm grateful for that trust, and I hope that people view that I've made a difference in their lives.
When you made your announcement that you weren't running for re-election, you got a lot of questions on, what's next, and either you weren't ready to say, you weren't quite sure yet. So now it's been a few weeks. Has that come more into focus? Do you know what's next for Jim Langevin?
Yeah, no solid decisions on anything, and still I'll be contemplating that going forward. Again, my focus right now is continuing to do the job of representing the people of Rhode Island in Congress for the next year. So it won't be until the end of 2022 that my term concludes. So there's still a lot of work to do. And there'll be time for me to consider, what will come next. But I hope that whatever I do, my plan is to always in some way be in service to the people of the state of Rhode Island.
Well, let me just ask you this real quick, and I'm sure you'll brush it off, but there has been some talk that you could be the next president of Rhode Island College. Have you discussed that with anyone? Are you open to it?
I have heard the buzz out there too, and I have talked to a couple people who have approached me about, hey, is this something that you would consider? And certainly it's something that I would have to consider. I'm so proud of my alma mater, and it's really where I cut my teeth there, and even in elective office, it was the first time I ever ran for anything and held office as a freshman representative, and then in student government, became president of student body. But again, get great education there. I'm proud of my alma mater, but leading the college, that's something that would have to explore, and obviously I'm not the person that decides that. So,
Congressman, a lot of people seem to be caught by surprise by your announcement last week, including people in your own party. They certainly didn't make any effort to change the congressional maps to try to make the 2nd District bluer, for example. Did you give anyone a heads up that you were going to make this announcement, or would you really keep it close to the vest until we all were surprised last week?
Well, mainly I gave my family the heads up and discussed this with them and close friends. One of the reasons I made the announcement and the decision in January is that I wanted to give the party plenty of time to come up with the strongest possible nominee to carry on and to be elected in their own right this coming November. The filing period, of course, is not until the end of June. I didn't want to wait until filing period to say, hey, I'm not going to run. It's such an enormous responsibility. representing over 500,000 people in the United States Congress. And again, it's an incredible privilege that I've been able to be the voice and the vote of the people of Rhode Island in Congress for all these years. And I just want to give people as much heads up as possible so we can put forward the strongest nominee. And I know several have already emerged.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the candidates who have announced so far, Seth Magaziner being the one with the highest profile?
Sure, a great field and candidates that are starting to emerge, and I don't think we still know the full field, but certainly Seth Magaziner is going to be a strong candidate.
Well, Seth Magaziner, as you know, lives on the east side. The Constitution, I believe, only requires that you be 25 years old and live within the state. You don't have to live in the district of which you serve or you run for.
Yeah.
But do you think candidates should live in the 2nd Congressional District if they're going to run for it?
Yeah, I absolutely think that the candidates should live in the 2nd Congressional District. But you know, Rhode Island is kind of one big neighborhood anyway. It's a great community, if you will, and that's what I think I love the most about it. I think what we all love about it. It is kind of like one big neighborhood. So I think Seth lives within a mile of the 2nd District, and he said he's going to move into the 2nd District. So, but you know, ultimately, I think whoever represents the 2nd Congressional District really should live in the district.
And you think they should live in the district now when they're running for re-election? Treasurer Magaziner wouldn't say whether or not he was going to move now or only if he wins, for example.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the sooner that gets addressed, you know, the better that they live in the district. But again, the Constitution says that you have to be a resident of the state that you're representing, and certainly all the candidates right now qualify in that respect. But the best, you know, situation is that the person lives in the 2nd Congressional District, and I'm sure that will happen.
Is your phone ringing with people like Seth Magaziner, maybe Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, name has been tossed around there? Are they calling you to pick your brain?
Some candidates have called me already. I've not heard from Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, though I know her and have a lot of respect for her. I know she's got a lot on her plate. Obviously, we're trying to still get through this pandemic. I know although she has left her official position, she's going to be working as a consultant for the state for the next few months. So I know she's got a lot on her plate. But certainly, you know, if she called, I'd be glad to give her whatever advice I could offer.
Do you anticipate endorsing before the Democratic primary?
Yeah, I haven't decided that yet. It's still, again, too early to decide whether I'm going to endorse in the race yet. Again, the filing period is not until the end of June, so you know I'll be thinking about that as I see the candidates emerge and you know watch how they debate and the platforms that they put forward. It certainly is a distinct possibility that I would endorse, but haven't made that decision yet.
So look, you're not running for re-election, as we talked about. You don't have to be as diplomatic anymore, so I kind of want to pick your brain on a few things. I would say you're a moderate Democrat, but your party has been pulled more to the left considerably in the last decade or so, and I suppose you could say the Republican Party has been pulled more to the right. Is the Democratic Party too progressive for your taste, or to put it another way, do you feel out of step with the party right now?
Well, I've always been a moderate who believes in reaching out across the aisle and trying to find common ground. It's the only way we really get the big things done. And you know, there are many challenges that we face as a state, as a country, and on every major issue that I've worked on, whether it's cybersecurity, national security, career and technical education, disabilities issues, on and on, I've always looked for a Republican partner, a bipartisan effort that we kind of blend the different views and you come up with the best product at the end of the day. So I continue to do that. You know, that's not happening enough in D.C. And I think in the country too, both in Congress and the country, where we're far too divided. And look, we have got a good thing going here in this great experiment that is our democracy that has lasted for more than 200 years. We have to remember really what unites us and keeps us together, and recommit to finding those ways of getting along and again finding that common ground, and that's the best way to move forward. But it's we've hit a rough patch for sure right now.
But are you uncomfortable with the direction your party has been heading in any way?
Well, I'm uncomfortable in the sense that there's too much division, and I think sometimes we're often talking past each other than talking with each other, and so we need to be refocused, reset, and hopefully find that common ground going forward. I hope that's the pendulum always swings both ways. Right now, and it may have swung too far one way. We've got to find that common ground.
Democrats are concerned that Republicans could take control of the House after the next election. Are you concerned about your seat turning red in the next election?
Well, that's why I wanted us to field the strongest possible candidate. We've seen in the elections how the district has become more and more conservative. You look at the map; it's the last two presidential elections. My district has been more red. The first district has been more blue. So again, we have to make sure we're fielding a very strong candidate. Focus on the issues that matter most to the people of Rhode Island right now, and that's the economy, getting through this pandemic, helping working families get ahead and make ends meet. Those are the things that we stand for as a party, and we need to continue to focus on those issues. And I believe we do that here in Rhode Island, and nationally we'll be successful. So it's too early, I think, to determine who's going to be in control of Congress in November. But I think if the American people, the voters, focus on what Democrats have been able to deliver for them, I believe that the Democrats can and would maintain the majority. Look at passing the American Rescue Plan, put money in people's pockets, helped our businesses, especially our small businesses, to keep their doors open, their workforce intact. The infrastructure bill that we just passed, and so many other things that are going to create good-paying jobs going forward, and are going to help the American people really realize the American dream, and we're going to grow the middle class. That has been our focus as a Democratic Party.
What do you think about the job that Speaker Pelosi has done? You're not going to be asked to vote for her again because you're not going to be in Congress next term if the Democrats do still have control. What do you think of how she's done? Yeah,
I've been more impressed with her this time around as Speaker than when she was Speaker back around 2010. And I think she's really grown into the job and has dealt with a lot of obviously controversial issues, and obviously we're a big tent in the Democratic Party, and diverse views within our caucus, and sometimes it's like herding cats, but she's she's been able to kind of hold the Democratic caucus together and push forward on, again, issues that matter to working families, and working hard to grow the middle class and provide opportunity for those who may not have had a voice in the past. So I think she's done a very good job in a very difficult circumstances, keeping us focused on getting us through this pandemic.
You talked about accomplishments by your party, but there are some big ticket items that just have not gotten through. Voting rights, Build Back Better. They get through your chamber, and then they stall out in the Senate. Yeah. I know it's not your chamber, but there was a push to change the Senate filibuster rules to get some of these priorities through. Would you support that?
So I have to tell you, over the years, it's been so frustrating that we get some really good bills through the House, and then it gets over to the Senate, and because of the filibuster rule meaning that we need 60 votes in order to pass anything, it's beyond frustrating. But it is the filibuster is the only thing that really protects the minority rights and make sure that maybe some really bad things also don't happen. Because we saw what happened when we did away with the filibuster and the Republicans did away with it for Supreme Court justices, and now we have a very conservative Supreme Court, probably for the next generation or more.
So in other words, be careful what you wish for.
Right, be careful what you wish for, and so. Again, that's a Senate thing. I leave that to Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse to determine, whether or not they would vote to change the filibuster. But yeah, be careful what you wish for, because it's a tough one. It's very tempting when you're in the that seat and you want something, you want to get it across the finish line. It's just that if you could only do it by a majority vote, but it would have consequences too, and on the downside. If it changes.
All right, we're going to take a break here. Congressman Langevin is a member of the Armed Services Committee. We're going to get his thoughts on the tensions in Ukraine. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, Steph Machado in for Ted Nesi, and our guest this week is Congressman Jim Langevin. Congressman, you are on the Armed Services Committee. Got to ask you about what's going on in Ukraine right now. How concerned are you this will become an active war, to put it one way?
Well, we should all be very concerned with the amassing of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. It looks like Vladimir Putin is on the verge of going into Ukraine to take that country by force, which is outrageous. It's wrong, and I condemn that action in the strongest possible terms if that's where we're going. I know that President Biden is confronting Vladimir Putin and in letting him know in no uncertain terms that the international community will not stand by idly and condone his aggressive actions moving into Ukraine, taking it by force. There'll be harsh, severe diplomatic, economic consequences through sanctions that would be imposed by the international community on Vladimir Putin, possibly sanctioning Putin himself. I know that the United States has sent military arms to Ukraine, Javelin missiles, for example, anti-tank missiles, to try to strengthen Ukraine's defenses. But this is a very serious situation, and it will change the balance of power, and it'll change the world community in that part of the world for the worse if Russia goes into Ukraine.
Yeah, look, diplomatic sanctions, financial ones, sending arms over there. Do you see a scenario in which the United States sends troops?
I don't envision that at this point. President Biden has said that he does not at all plan to send U.S. troops into Ukraine. I don't think that that's something that the American people are ready for. I think we're weary of military conflict over the years, including most recently in Afghanistan and the years because we were in Iraq. But there are other things and tools at our disposal that we can use to impose pain on Russia and Vladimir Putin in particular if they do take this kind of military action. It would be really unfortunate, but as I look at this and I'm seeing over the years and both listening to what Putin has had to say and the actions he's taken, it's almost like he is determined to reconstitute the borders of the old Soviet Union, and that I'm wondering if that's part of his action that he's potentially planning to take and military action against Ukraine. It would be very unfortunate. I condemn it in strong terms.
Congressman, I want to ask you about your time in Washington as a person who uses a wheelchair. I read an interview you gave recently about how when you were an intern in the 80s, it wasn't as accessible as it is now. How far have we come when it comes to access in the United States for people with disabilities, and do we have further to go in that realm?
Sure. Well, when I interned in Washington with Senator Pell, which is an amazing experience, and I'm a longtime admirer of Senator Pell and his great public service he gave to the people of Rhode Island. I've tried to emulate how he conducted himself as a Rhode gentleman. But when I was there in the 80s, that was before the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Not everything was accessible, and accommodations that occurred back then, it was kind of a courtesy. It wasn't a right to have access to public accommodations. Capitol Hill had gone through some renovations even before ADA to make it more accessible, so their curb cuts were pretty common in DC and things like that, but not everything was accessible. When I got to Washington, there were things that the Capitol, because ADA had passed by then, and it made my service in Congress made it more possible. Without ADA passing, I don't know that I would be able to serve in Congress, but there were still things that needed to be done, and still things that need to be worked on. But we've come a long way, and in my time in Congress, I've tried to look for opportunities to open up those doors of opportunity for people with disabilities, bring down barriers. But there's still things that we need to do on a broader scale across the country. Accessible transportation for people with disabilities. Obviously, more job opportunities. It doesn't do any good to get the job, though, if you can't get to the job, and why public transportation is so important. And we've got to have better transportation options for people with disabilities. But beyond that, home and community-based services so that people with disabilities can live more actively and independently in their communities is something that we also need to continue to work on. But we've come a long way thanks to passage of the ADA. I was proud to be there when we passed the ADA Amendments Act, of course. That was years after the ADA was passed, and the courts had weakened the ADA through court decisions. We had to restate what those principles were and clarify the original intent of the ADA, and that's why I was so proud to be in the Oval Office with President Bush when he signed the ADA Amendments Act into law. Do
you think the ADA needs any more changes?
Well, again, it's a work in progress. I think one of the things we need to do is put resources into realizing the full promise of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and things like, again, more and frequent transportation options for people with disabilities. Right now, anyone that has to use public transportation or the RIDE program in Rhode Island knows that there's problems with it. It's not seamless. It's not easy. I've spoken to Scott Avedian, who heads up RIPTA right now, about trying to expand that. I've spoken to the governor about those transportation options, and I know Governor McKee has said that he's all in on working with me and with RIPTA to try to expand those options. So that's welcome news, and Scott Avedian, again, same. He wants to expand options and look at how we can take a fresh look at how we're providing accessible transportation for people with disabilities.
I want to hit you up on a couple of quick things here. At his press conference, Seth Magaziner was asked if members of Congress should not trade individual stock. This is he said no to that question, and this is a question about criticism you have faced for being active in trading stocks. And I think the question some people might have is, how can they feel assured that you weren't leveraging your office for personal gain?
Yeah, I have always put the interests of the people of Rhode Island before my own interests. I had always believed that, like everyone, members of Congress could have access to the capital markets. But I think it's clear now that people have concerns about members of Congress trading in stocks, and they feel that it's not appropriate. And so there's a bill in Congress called the Stock Act that would prevent members of Congress from trading in markets, and that's something that if it comes to the floor that I would vote for, just to take the perception out of that that members of Congress have some kind of a unfair advantage.
Reflecting on your 22 years in Congress, what was the most memorable moment in those 2 decades?
Well, in terms of legislation, no doubt it was, without question, it was the passage of the Affordable Care Act. That act provided coverage to millions of people that had previously been uninsured, and lowered health care costs for millions of people. So I was so proud to be at the White House with President Obama when he signed that law into effect. The other most memorable event, of course, was when I was able to preside over the U.S. House of Representatives. Speaker Pelosi appointed me Speaker Pro Tem after we made the Speaker's rostrum accessible, and that was on the 20th anniversary of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That was an overwhelming moment, a humbling moment in my life. And I hope as a symbol of hope to millions of people with disabilities across the country that anything is possible. And I've never let anything get in my way, and I hope people never let anything get in their way.
Do you have any regrets from your time in Congress?
Oh, there's still, lots of legislation that, that I still want to work on, and that still things need to be done. Again, the Affordable Care Act, when it was passed, very important piece of legislation, but it wasn't perfect. A big regret is that we haven't found that bipartisan way to make it even stronger. There's still much more we need to do in terms of strengthening our cybersecurity, but I'm very proud of, that's one of my biggest accomplishments, working on the Cyberspace Solarium Commission most recently, which was charged with creating overarching strategy to better protect us in cyberspace. Which came out of that, I was able to create the first ever Senate-confirmed National Cyber Director. President Biden just appointed Chris Inglis as the first National Cyber Director. So that's something I've been working on for more than a decade. It finally got done. So, but there's still more work to do. There's never a silver bullet that we're going to be able to be 100% secure in cyberspace. But that's something else I've been proud to have led the effort to better protect us in cyberspace.
And what do you think you can accomplish in your final year?
And we have 1 minute left, Congressman.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, getting us through this pandemic is job one. Still people are struggling and hurting and dealing with the consequences of the pandemic. We have to get everybody through that, and I'll be laser focused on that, along with my Democratic colleagues. Beyond that, though, there is cyber legislation that I'm working on, and we need to continue to focus on making sure that we're helping people in the middle class get ahead. Still many people are still struggling to make ends meet, so we have to continue to provide opportunities and support wherever possible. Hopefully getting aspects of the Build Back Better planned across the finish line, establishing things like universal pre-K and many other things.
All right, Congressman Jim Langevin, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And I hope we do have you back in the next year for your final year in Congress. And thank you for watching. If you missed any of it, it's on WPRI.com. For Steph Machado, I'm Tim White. See you next week on Newsmakers.